Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. One of the things that plagues our podcasting is that Kristen has a really loud digestive system and always has.
My stomach has been, I think it's like a metabolism thing. I don't know. I've asked doctors about it.
You could just sit with her in silence and her stomach could have an entirely separate conversation with you. And I often have experienced that. And we're always laughing about how
I'm so
could
afraid
be picked up on the podcast.
I'm so afraid we have a sensitive microphone. You guys are going to be like, what is that weird noise? Oh, it's just me digesting my breakfast.
Oh my God. It's so funny. We often have to podcast right after she's had a bunch of liquid or had a meal, and it's just so dangerous.
So now you know a weird factoid about me.
So funny. I just couldn't not because I was hearing it right before we turned this on. Okay, well, before we get into this month's questions, I want to remind you of a couple of things. Well, actually, remind you about some things, bring up something new. One, I hope you're enjoying our new Magic 8-Ball style Tuesdays.
I hope you're not missing it every other Tuesday too much.
Well, if you are, that just means that your enjoyment has to be more concentrated over 6 episodes instead of 8. And I don't think concentration of joy is a bad thing. So I'm going to say I approve because I'm invested in making sure people like what we did. But okay.
And I hope that those of you who have joined our texting group are enjoying what we've been sending you so far. And if you haven't joined, why not?
Please.
You should get texts from us.
Yeah, at this moment, I haven't actually sent a text yet because we're doing this so far in advance, but I'm assured that by my future self that you liked what you received thus far. And if you're not on the list yet,
please
join it.
That.
So there's a link in the episode description where you can just click and sign up for our weekly, couple times a week texts.
You can also text us directly at 703-783-3223.
Yeah.
Rachel's face was completely disbelieving that I would memorize that, but I did.
Yeah, well, she's not very good at remembering things like that, so I
chose a memorable phone number for us on purpose so that I would have an easier time.
But it's easy to sort of transpose the numbers because there's so many threes.
I don't know why. It's just in my head now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it is. So if you want to sign up, you can either, again, fill out the form. You can text us at 703-783-3223. But if you do that, you got to do the right format. So you got to do your first name followed by a single space followed by your email address. Then hit send.
I mean, if you get it wrong and you don't include your email address, we have something that's going to say, hey, we didn't get your email address. Please do that.
Oh, it does do that?
Yeah, I set it up that way.
What about international? I think that we can probably only do US. Maybe Canada is...
I think that's right.
Okay.
Canada, we can.
Okay.
I think even maybe Mexico.
So maybe North America is good?
North America's good.
So I'm sorry
if... I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm sorry if you're an international person.
Maybe we'll figure that out one day. Maybe we'll...
No, you're still getting our emails and our podcast, so they can't be too upset. But I'm sorry that this is for North American folk at this moment. You can also just pull up your, Google and just put in clarityonfire.com/text-me.
There's so many ways you can sign up. You should definitely do that.
All of this information is in the episode notes because I didn't expect you to memorize that phone number. So we text you on Monday mornings with a little bit of hello, here's some inspiration or some thought for the week or just a
question to ponder.
Getting in your head and planting a little bit of an earworm, which sounds gross, but it's not. It's a wisdom worm.
What a great way you're describing. We're going to put worms in your ears if you get on our texting list.
Really sexy. And then we might text you another time during the week with like a roundup of stuff or thoughts or whatever. I'm figuring this out as I go. Who cares? If you want to hear from us, get on the text list and then you'll be surprised and delighted by what you find.
And if you have ideas about, I'd love to be texted this kind of thing, you can share ideas. Like we said, we're figuring this out. So we'd love to hear from you if you have ideas about what you would like to hear from us.
Yeah, what would be helpful to you in text form. Okay, so one other thing is that I'm not going to give dates yet because I haven't like totally established.
We're still confirming.
Yeah, but just wanted to let you know that we are going to be taking on one-on-one coaching clients later this month, like in 2 or 3 weeks probably.
If you'll remember, some of you are going to remember this, some of you are new. We only take on coaching clients a few times a year. We
like
have
3 times a year,
like enrollment periods for coaching. And we're going to have one of those coming up later this month. So you're definitely going to want to be paying attention if you've been interested in getting started with some coaching.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a shortened window where we're specifically opening up spots to be available to new people.
And then it's back to the wait list for you.
Yeah.
Also, just letting you know that we're going to be taking on fewer clients because last time I think we overshot.
Yeah, we overcommitted.
And I almost broke down, which is not to say that anyone who worked with me recently, you know, you guys got the best of me. You did. But like, at what cost? to my mental health. And it was really also just a combination of that plus the work we're doing for IPEC on the side, which is our coach training program. So like we're putting in a lot of hours in a lot of places right now. So because of that, we're going to be smarter about how many clients we take on at a time. So it's going to be, I would say, fewer than 20.
Yeah.
As opposed to last time, which was more than 20. I'm not going to say exactly how many, but it's probably going to be more like 15 to 20 as opposed to 20 to 25, which is not a lot of spots.
It's not.
Yeah. So we'll be back with more info about that, but just know that if that's something you want to do, like be thinking about it now and maybe go to our one-on-one coaching page, which I will link to, and brush up on what your options are so that you can really think about, can I do this? Do I want to do this? If I have a spouse who might need to support me in doing it, can I start talking to them about it now so that I'm not dropping that bomb on them? We have that happen sometimes where someone has to kind of get their spouse on board, which is normal.
It's a financial commitment and you're making financial decisions together. So I get that. So yeah, you can kind of start having those conversations ahead of time if you know this is something you want to do.
Okay. So should we get into our questions this month?
Yeah, go for it. We got 3 this month. All good. Very different.
Yeah, so they're all, and also kind of short in comparison to the average missive we receive. So let me dive in. Dear Krachel, I took the passion profile quiz and got Thriver, which definitely resonates with me. But I'm wondering if it's possible that I could be one of the other 3 types, but I'm getting Thriver because I'm burnout and, frankly, resentful of having to work at all. I wish we lived in a culture where it was possible for people to take a year off to chill and recover. I feel like if I could do that, who knows who I might really be? Maybe I'd have more ideas and motivation. Or would a Thriver still be who I really am? Is there any way to tell? Miranda.
This is such a good question, Miranda. You are hitting on something that I have absolutely seen many times over in my years of coaching. The only real false positive that I see on our quiz is exactly what you're describing, where people who are experiencing burnout might get the result. The way they answer the questions on our quiz might have them get Thriver when they may or may not be a Thriver if they weren't burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's a little bit complicated to tell the difference when you're in the throes of burnout because you can't really access your normal sense of motivation and passion and all of that. Everything's kind of numb in burnout, so it's a little harder to discern, but we do have some ideas for you.
I think that we should pause and explain for those people who might not know, like people who are new or have taken the passion profile quiz, but who've only ever read their result, and so they don't
what's
know.
A Thriver?
Well, like why, yes, and then why that result is most likely to get if you're burnt out. And that's because Thrivers are unlike any other type. They're the type of people who actively do not want to combine their work with their passion. So they don't necessarily want to get paid to do something they're passionate about because it can rob them of the intrinsic value they feel for like just having the passion and doing it. And honestly, I know that doesn't make sense to people who are like fire starters or tribe members. Like, they don't get it. They're like, why wouldn't you want to be paid to do something you care about all day long? That sounds great. But for a thriver, that just puts a lot of pressure on you. And so their preference is much more around work-life balance and doing a job that, basically it pays the bills and they enjoy and that they feel competent at and they like the people, but it doesn't have to be like the end-all be-all of their emotional experience and all of their needs getting met there. They would rather have nice boundaries around their work and be able to like clock in and clock out. And then their job is kind of the thing that funds the rest of their life, whatever, they want to pursue outside of work. That's where they kind of come alive.
Yeah. Thrivers work to live, not live to work.
No, I don't think anyone should live to work. But like, if we're going to parse it down that generally, then that's kind of how it works.
Well, some of the other profiles, like they get so many of their needs met.
Jazzed up by work. Yeah.
And they really, really want to feel that sense of passion and fulfillment and like, I'm being really purposeful. And that's fine. And
thrivers are like, how can I work the least amount possible and still live and still get to enjoy all of my pursuits?
Exactly. So you can imagine that if you're feeling burnt out, that sounds kind of nice because you're just burnt out of working in general.
Yeah.
And so you want to just quit and live your life and not really think about it.
And mentally clock out and just chill and not have to worry about making money and all of that stuff. So yeah, it makes sense why then you would get thriver if you were kind of burnout. So how do you tell the difference between being a real thriver and a burnout person who might be just a burnout side hustler, a burnout tribe member or something?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think can be helpful is you're going to have a hard time accessing that right now, frankly. But if you can look back on past work experiences where you felt really different, where you didn't feel like you wanted to just clock in and clock out. Maybe you did have a lot of passion for what you were doing, or maybe you were kind of excited to get involved in certain projects and you didn't mind working late sometimes. If you've had a very different experience with other jobs in the past, it's more likely that you're a different profile who's burnt out in your current role and you've lost that feeling of passion just because you're freaking tired.
At least a partially different profile. You might have real thriver energy somewhere, but there's a likelihood that if you have really different experiences in your past of being very engaged in your work and really like feeling lit up by it, that you are at least partially different type who's, just needs to recover and is experiencing burnout. I would also add that, and this might be a hard thought experiment, but I kind of want you to try it, Miranda, and whoever else might feel like this is resonating with them. Imagine like, okay, let's put myself into this ideal scenario. Close your eyes and imagine that like you get to go and stay on an island for like a year and you just get to like sleep for 10 hours a day and you get to like get massages and you get to just like do whatever you want to recover for like a year. Just put yourself in that fantasy. And then imagine, okay, how soon would I get bored of that? And if I really imagined rejuvenating back to like 100% batteries, how do I think I would want to spend the rest of my life? Or if that's a big question, then what do I think I would want to do next? I think once a thriver, always a thriver. So I feel like a real thriver is going to be like, that's great. I don't ever want to go back to doing anything else ever again.
I live on this island now. This is my home.
Yeah. And I think if you're another type, you're going to be like, that was great. And now I feel better. And now what? And I think about that too, because I've definitely related. I mean, I'm part thriver and I've definitely over-related to being a thriver sometimes when I was burnout. But when I'm not burnout, my ideas and my motivation, my creativity come back. And I definitely feel like I would get restless and I would get a little bit bored and I would want to be doing something, that I feel passionate about and to get paid to do that. And so I know that works for me to kind of imagine that scenario.
You might also have to put yourself in a version of that. I'm not saying quit everything and fly off to a deserted island right now, unless you have the means to do so, in which case, please do for all of our sakes.
Well, but obviously.
I'm getting the sense that you don't, since you were saying, I wish I could do this. I wish this was normal in our society, but I just can't. In that case, you might need something like a bridge job right now to recoup some of your lost energy. You might need to recover from burnout in order to get a really solid answer. We're giving you some ways of at least starting to think about what else might I be if I weren't so burnt out. And no matter what, you're going to have to recover from burnout before you really, really know, and before you have the energy to go into the next thing, whatever that is. So it's okay to say, I might need a job for a little while where maybe it looks a lot like a Thriver job, where I can just clock in and clock out, and it doesn't take a lot of my energy. And I can spend some time recovering from burnout without a lot of pressure to have to do a lot of work in the meantime, but my bills are covered. And then you will know if you get into a Thriver job for a little while as a means of recovering from burnout and you like it, and you're kind of fine with it.
That means that's might probably be a Thriver.
If you get really bored and you're ready for a new challenge, great. That's also your answer. So that might kind of kill two birds with one stone right now, help you to recover from burnout and help you clarify what your real profile is.
One more thing I want to say, and this is really just nitpicky, and I'm nitpicking you, Kristen, is when you said that the only false positive is when people get Thriver when they're burnout. And I find that is false. There's a lot of side hustlers who take the quiz.
That is
and
true.
get 3 different results and then are like, what am I? And I'm like, you're a side hustler because you can't choose and you like all of them.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yes, I
so
do
I just
see,
wanted to add that there is a second false positive, and it's when side hustlers are like, I like all of these.
I'm all the profiles. We're like, no, you're just a side hustler.
I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, question number 2.
Okay, this one's really short. Dear Krachel, how do I walk the line between sitting with emotions versus letting them take over and run amok? In other words, how do I feel my feelings without spiraling out of control? And that is from Jules. Jules has clearly listened to many of our previous podcasts about the importance of feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
And now she's like, okay, but how do I know when it's too much?
I'm just kind of stuck on her use of the word amuck because it reminds me of what I think it was Sarah Jessica Parker's character in Hocus Pocus when she was just jumping up and down going, amuck, amuck, amuck. And I just can't stop thinking about that. Yeah, but that's true. Your feelings do sometimes want to run amok. And okay, so this is hard because on the one hand, I want you to be able, part of like turning your feelings back on and learning how to feel feelings again in a healthy way is sometimes you got to overdo it. Like sometimes you have to let it kind of spiral out of control. But I also understand that maybe it doesn't feel good or maybe it's scary or I don't know.
Sometimes not very productive.
Overwhelming.
To
to just like
spiral.
Right. To end up in a place where you're just in a ditch for like 24 hours or a week because you're just feeling all of the feelings. I understand the need to walk the line. I don't want you to be like super perfect or careful about like there's an exact line and I have to get it right because there's no getting it right or wrong. But I will tell you what I did with with a client who had this issue. She was, again, this is very normal, being a little bit all or nothing about her emotional experience. So either she was like in a ditch for a week or she was trying to have no feelings and distract herself and constantly like make plans with people and, you know, be busy so that she wasn't feeling things or wasn't engaging with her feelings at all. So what I had her do was I had her set time limits around how long she was allowed to feel her feelings. Or, I mean, allowed is a weird word, but
it's
like
more like a amount of time to flex the muscle of feeling your feelings.
Right. And so and then built it up. So at first it was like literally 10 minutes. Like all I want is for you to just sit with how you feel without distracting yourself for 10 minutes. And then if you can do that, if you can feel rage, feel sadness, feel grief, whatever it is you're feeling for 10 minutes, then you're allowed to go do this stuff that, you know what, frankly, if it's distracting you, fine. Go do the distracting stuff, but at least you've kind of clocked in your emotional weightlifting for that day, and we can build up. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes for long. It can be 20 minutes. It can be an hour to the point where like you're letting more and more and more out, but you can handle it, and it doesn't feel like it's taking you down.
Yeah, and when Rachel is saying sit with your feelings for 10 minutes...
I mean many different things by sit with.
Yeah, that doesn't mean just sit on the couch and be like, I'm having a lot of feelings. You could. You can, sure. But if you need more of an expressive way to experience your feelings, you can write them out. You can journal them.
Journal for 10 minutes.
You can, if one of your feelings is rage or anger, you can hit a pillow. If you need to
You won't
cry,
be able to do that for 10 minutes.
You can't. I know, I've tried. It's really exhausting.
It's really hard for more than like a minute.
It is. You can cry. You can
Meditate.
Scream into a pillow. You can meditate. You can go for a walk and just like kind of feel like you're physically moving while you're feeling all the feelings.
Your feelings out into a voice note on your phone for 10 minutes. But I actually feel like I want you to do it for 10 minutes. If you can't be at a couch for 10 minutes, fine. Be at a couch for 1 minute and then sit there and feel how you feel for another 9.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's kind of the challenge, is to get better and better at allowing yourself to feel it without feeling like it's taking over or you're drowning in it. I think that's the fear and I think that's a normal fear when you're trying to become a more emotionally in tune, healthy person, that you're afraid you're going to drown in all of the stuff that you haven't allowed yourself to feel, potentially for years.
Right. And that's the fear, which is why we distract ourselves from doing this at all in the first place.
So fine.
I don't want to act like this is a perfect solution where you can feel your feelings for 10 minutes and then you don't have to feel them for another day until you do it again.
That's not perfect.
They're probably going to spill over and come back. And the most important thing, and what I actually think is the reason for most emotional spirals, is the fact that you're judging your feelings for not being okay, or you're judging yourself for not being able to get over it more quickly. And if you could just say, I guess I'm spiraling, here's all the feelings, I don't know how to stop them, and not make that a bad thing, just recognize this kind of sucks for a little while and it's temporary and it will end. I actually think the spiral will go a lot quicker. So if you could just not judge it, you may not even need time limits. You're just going to feel it and it's going to wash over you in a wave. And then you can move on. But it is okay to do what Rachel's saying, try it out for a short time, and then you are allowed to distract yourself. That's okay.
Yeah, because again, like at the end of the day, I mean, I can make a case for either side of this, but is it great to just feel depressed and then keep feeling depressed for 2 days? I don't know how productive that is. So I think if you want to let yourself feel depressed for 10 or 20 minutes and then you want to go do something else, you want to look at something else, like shift your focus to something else, that's okay, as long as you're willing to go back to feeling how you feel tomorrow for a period of time. I think it's letting it out. It's almost like, okay, I'm afraid to open up. I've shaken a soda bottle and I'm afraid to just pop that cap off because it's going to be like everywhere. Do you like my sound effects? I understand kind of like slowly releasing it and kind of like that hiss of letting the kind of carbonation out so that it doesn't automatically just everywhere, all over your experience.
Yeah. I'm thinking about little kids and how what part of their development is learning how to process big emotions. And sometimes, you need to let them just have the tantrum. And then at the end of it, when they're in those like dry heave sobs, like they've got it all out and they're just exhausted, then you can say, hey, look at this toy. Let's go get ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, then you can they've gotten it out. They've moved on. Let's
do something else.
Do something else that's a little bit more productive and more positive. Right. You can do the same thing to yourself. You are also learning how to process emotions, just like the kid version of you had to learn how to process emotions. And sometimes you have to just feel them, and sometimes you're allowed to be the parent who's distracting yourself and saying like, okay, we got that out. Let's move on. We're probably going to have another tantrum tomorrow, but it's going to all be fine.
Well, one last thing I want to say to that note, though, is that I think distraction in this context means like, no, don't look at that at all. Don't feel that. Like, let's not even go there. So I feel like if you go there for 10 or 20 minutes and then you do something else, is that a distraction? Or is that just shifting your focus to something else?
Yes.
So I feel like I'm kind of nitpicking the definition of the word distraction because...
Well, it has a bad connotation.
Well, right. And I don't think it is a distraction if you've allowed yourself to go there for even a short period of time, if that's all you can manage at the beginning. I understand that. I think if you've been trying to feel your feelings for a year and you're only achieving 10 minutes a time before you can't handle it anymore, then like, let's talk. But if you're at the beginning and you're just trying to like, I don't know, be a healthy, emotionally intelligent person, like I understand needing some time limits. And I don't think it's a distraction to then go look at something else. I think that's just you trying to like cope as a human who also has to like pay bills and work and stuff.
Right. You need your attention on a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Okay. So last question. Maybe one of my favorites we've received in a while. No shade to Jules or Miranda. Dear Krachel, I am a single, straight guy in my 20s. I got out of a relationship about 6 months ago, and I'm ready to start dating again. Curious what advice you two have for me, especially about what's attractive in a man. What would make me stand out on an app other than just, quote, being myself? Love your podcast. Thanks, Eric.
I love Eric for asking this question. Also, very wise and strategic of him to ask to women.
Yeah.
What is attractive to women?
To elderly women in comparison to him.
Elderly. I don't know if we're quite
He said
elderly.
he's in his 20s. I don't know if he's 24. I don't know if he's 29. You know, who knows?
But it's very smart of him to not go to his dude friends and ask, but to go to
what do they know?
A couple of women. So kudos to you, Eric, for asking that.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about what's attractive, and I have also different thoughts about selling yourself on a dating app. So I kind of want to get into both because I know he's asking specifically about like how do I sort of stand out in like the modern dating world, but I also just want to talk about like generally what I think women find attractive.
I think
conscious women find attractive.
The core of the question is how do I go into a new relationship
or the dating world? Because
he said
to start dating again.
True.
So maybe we should start there.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing that I want to say is that this is true whether you are meeting people on an app or you're meeting people in real life. One of the things that I think is really attractive and really smart for, I will say men, but all people actually.
Really all people.
To do is to be clear about why you want to date.
What are your intentions around dating?
You can put on a dating profile or you can say to someone on a first date, I'm looking for someone to go on adventures with and to hang out with. And
I'm looking
to date and have a casual relationship. I'm not looking for anything particularly serious right now. That's an okay thing to say.
No, in fact, you should say it.
I recommend it because that's where a lot of misinterpretations and hurt feelings come from is people are looking for different things. So just be honest and be clear about that. And if you are ready for a more serious relationship and ultimately you really do want marriage and a family, you can say, I'm looking for something serious. I've been dating up until now and I'd really like
I'm open to finding something serious.
I'm open to finding someone who eventually I might want to build a family with. You can say that. You're not saying, if I go on a date with you, I want to marry you. You're just saying, this is my intentions for dating.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women and hopefully a lot of people in general would really respect that.
Please do that because I feel like it just causes so many mixed messages when you don't know what the other person's intention is around why are they dating.
And all of your intentions are fine. If you just want a casual
that's fine.
Girlfriend,
just be clear.
That's fine. Just tell them.
Yeah, no one's gonna, I don't shade you for that. I do if you're not being clear about that and someone you're dating wants something serious and you don't, then that's not cool. Don't do that.
You're not really compatible and it's gonna explode.
No. Okay. So let's just start there. Be clear about your intentions. And this isn't just for you, Eric. This is literally for anyone who's listening to this. Okay, now, what's attractive in a man? Period. Okay, I'll try to keep this short. So, I think you're probably already, at least halfway, if not more, to this place anyway, because if you like this podcast, that means that you're probably a more conscious, self-aware person in general. You couldn't stand listening to us if you didn't have that quality. So I'm going to say that one of the things that my friends and I text about, so I'm thinking of two friends in particular who are in relationships that are less than 6 months old with actually both of them with slightly younger men. They're in their early 30s, the men are in their late 20s. And the thing that is remarked upon, it is the standout thing that they're OMG, Rachel, can you believe this? Is he really listens to me.
Oh,
and
yes.
He respects my feelings and he doesn't freak out when I'm having feelings. It's can you believe that he's emotionally literate? It's remarkable. So that's what I want to say is in my circles, in conscious women's circles, the thing we are remarking upon is emotional literacy in men. And are you a good listener? Are you cool with people's feelings?
And by a good listener, what I think a lot of, and this makes sense because men are problem solvers by nature. It is how they are wired, and it's one of the things I love about them.
Yeah, sure.
And what makes it into a challenge is oftentimes they are listening only up until the point that they can find a solution.
So they can fix it.
And that's great because they care about that person. They want to be able to help them fix their problems and feel better and all of that. When women are saying he's a good listener, what they actually mean is he can just listen. Not to say you can never offer solutions, but at least at first, when a woman is processing and feeling a lot of emotions, if a man is able to just listen and ask good questions and not jump right into solutions, oh my God, are women going to eat that up? They just love that.
It's a very novel experience, let's be clear. Yeah. So being someone who can listen and just hold space for someone's emotions without getting freaked out or shut down, which means you've had to do some work on your own ability to like process feelings as a man, because otherwise other people having feelings is going to throw you off or make you want to shut down or make you want to shut their feelings down. And so someone who's comfortable with emotion, it doesn't mean you have to be the most sensitive like guy on the block. It just means you have to be accepting of other people's emotions. And I'm going to also add growth-oriented. Like, you have to be open-minded. You have to be someone who's interested in changing his mind. I can't tell you how unattractive it is to meet someone who, like, is already set in their ways, has all of their opinions already formulated, isn't open-minded at all to any new perspectives. Like, gross. You can't grow with that person. You can't have a real relationship with someone who isn't open to having his mind changed.
Yeah, open to new viewpoints, open to seeing things from new perspectives, open to having conversations that may go counter to things that you have thought. Like, those are really attractive qualities that women are very often speaking with other women and would love to be able to have those kinds of growth-oriented conversations with men.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean, again, you have to sit around talking about like touchy-feely feeling stuff all day long. It doesn't have to mean that you have to be like a carbon copy of a woman in order to be attractive to a woman. I want to be very clear on that fact. It's just that I think one of the things we as women, and at least conscious women, come up against over and over again is that us and all of our friends are often very interested in personal development and growth. And it's like men are often a few steps behind, if not very far behind on that front.
And that's for a lot of reasons, mostly because it's not societally acceptable as much, which is stupid.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so to have men who are closer in that development cycle and who want to grow and want to learn and want to like evolve and be better versions of themselves.
Which I can tell Eric is because he's listening to this podcast and asking this question.
And this is not just for Eric. This is for anyone.
Exactly.
Then that's really attractive. Okay.
As far as what to
the app part of
put
this
on a profile when you are...
Yes. How do you stand out beyond just be yourself?
I know, that is annoying advice.
He didn't want us to, he literally was like, don't tell me to just be myself. Give me better information than that.
I actually hate that advice too. People are like, oh.
Well, what does that even, well, because being yourself it depends in what context. Like, how you communicate yourself on an app is very different than how you communicate yourself in person. So like, you have to actually try to be yourself on an app, I think. You have to like be purposeful about what you're sharing or not sharing.
Yes. So I will tell you what is not particularly helpful or will not have you stand out is just to list a lot of your interests and hobbies. Like, I love skiing, or I like reading or biking. Like, cool. That tells me zero about who you are.
Millions of other people.
As a person. Also, your hobbies don't really matter in terms of
deep compatibility.
No. You can have very different hobbies and be very compatible. So kind of irrelevant. I'm not saying don't mention it. I'm just saying don't make that the meat of your profile or what you're sharing.
I'm not saying that like if you really want someone who values outdoor activities and like that, you feel like that's more than just a hobby. It's like a value. It's like a lifestyle thing. That's fine. But it cannot be the only point you're selling.
Well, that's actually exactly where I was going to go with this is talk more about your values.
Yeah.
And so if those things truly are values and they're things that are integral to your life and you would be really sad to not be able to share some of that, okay, fine. But on the whole, I'm talking more values like I really care about people who are passionate and inspired. And that's what I try to bring to my work and to my life. Or I care about growth. Yeah. That could be a great value to share. And I'm always trying to learn new things and grow as a person and develop into like the best version of myself. Those are much more important qualities to be highlighting than I like to go
kayak on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly. Like who
okay,
cares?
cool. But who are you? I still don't know who you are. That's
and that
the
will
point.
be a really novel experience too for women to see on a profile to say, wow, there's some depth here.
Yes, depth. Let's try to communicate depth because there's so little of that going on online. Okay, another thing. This is kind of just a me being a snarky thing, but I also just think it's true. Please don't be clever if you're not clever. Don't try to be funny if you're not really that funny. Because
maybe don't try that hard anyway, because it doesn't always translate from someone you don't know.
Right. I think that there's this kind of, I think there's this formulaic thing that people are often trying to fall into online where they're like, you know, I have to be witty and I have to be funny and I have to be like coming at it with the zingers and the flirtations. And I'm like, if you are naturally a very funny, clever, witty person, great, but it will happen without you trying. I think that you don't have to try to be funny or witty in order to win someone over. I think you just need to be real and honest and authentic and earnest. So if that means that you're just naturally a very thoughtful person, then be thoughtful. If that means that you're funny, then be funny. But like, don't try to be something that you think someone else wants to hear in order to win them over. That's not how you get anything in life worth having, is pretending to be something that you're not, or trying hard to be like, you know, to put on the air of something that just doesn't come naturally to you.
This is very much making me think about not just the profile, but actually the communications that you're going to send with people. Having been on a couple of dating sites, not in a few years, but I don't think it's changed that much. I can tell you, it doesn't take a lot for a message to stand out in the online dating sphere.
No.
What a lot of people are sending, or a lot of women, or just, I don't know, people in general are getting, are a lot of, hey girl, what's up? What you up to this weekend? Or some weird, witty question that they think is going to stand out, but they've also sent that exact same question to 50 other people that week.
If it looks like you copied and pasted it, don't send it.
And you don't have to, you don't have to do something witty and clever, but you also don't have to write a novel. Like, it's not that hard to just say, hey, I read this thing in your profile. It intrigued me. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, ask a normal question to keep the conversation.
Right.
Like, it's not as hard as you think to stand out, to send a normal message. Just prove that I actually found something about you in particular interesting.
Yes.
And I'm reaching out to you specifically.
Yes.
Because
that stood out to me.
I was attracted to blank.
Or I just thought it was interesting or funny or like, you know, again, it's so easy to, one of my friends had something about Oreos in her profile because she really likes Oreos. And he asked her about that. That's so, okay, so you can write a sentence about asking someone about their love of Oreos, or you could be like, how was your weekend? Like, the first makes it look like you actually read the fucking thing they wrote about themselves, which is attractive.
Back when I was on a couple of dating sites, I genuinely really wanted to start a second business where all I did was coach dudes on how to message women.
It's so bad.
It would have been the easiest thing to do, but the most effective, because it seems like this is just something people don't intuitively know. So it doesn't take a lot.
Again, emotional literacy, not high in certain circles, which just makes it easy to just rule those people out. Which again, if you can be like earnest and honest, if you can be genuinely interested in someone, like, or at least curious about someone, and it's very obvious you actually read what they wrote about themselves, or that you are interested in who they are, not just like, you know, I copied and pasted this message to 10 women. And I feel like you're already like 75% of the way there with impressing people, because effort is not actually common in these apps and these sites. So
I also just want to make sure that I'm sure people are already making this connection, but a lot of this applies to women online dating too.
Sure.
I know we've been talking about what's attractive of men to women, but a lot of these topics we're talking about, like talking about your values instead of your hobbies, and being honest about what you're looking for and why you're there, and having messages that are thoughtful and say, hey, I actually am thinking about you as a person, not just a profile.
Not only that, but like not just the way they're communicating, but what they're allowing into their experience.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this goes in reverse for women who are like, oh, this guy's cute and he asked me how my weekend was. I'm like, is that really the bar that we want to set for ourselves? Like, could we expect a little bit more out of someone who's communicating with us? That's kind of what I want. I want to like raises the bar to the kind of bar that Eric is on, because clearly he's on a high bar because he's asking us this question. And then I want women to raise their bar to expect more from the Erics of the world. Like, to expect Erics rather than
and to
dumb dude bros.
And to communicate in their own way to be attractive to the Erics in reverse. Like, both.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of these principles apply to how they communicate and also what they're looking for in other communications.
Well, sure, because if you're a guy sending out a like text messaging, I don't know. Clearly, I'm an elderly person. If you're like sliding into some hot chick's DMs, right? And you're just saying like, hey, how was your weekend? And she's picking up on that. Is that really what we want? Like, do we want the person who finds like that compelling? I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of a common denominator thing. It depends on what you want. If all you want is to hook up, then fine. That's enough of a communication.
And be clear about that.
Right. But if you want more and you're allowing the lowest common denominator to get into your experience, you're not going to get more from the lowest common denominator. That physics don't match up.
Yep.
So, okay, we could go on.
The whole podcast just about that question.
But I loved that question, and I hope that helps. And I hope that helps more than just Eric. I hope that helps all of us think a little bit differently about just online
dating and online dating in particular.
Yeah. Okay, so
remember, or do you have? I want to remind people about texting.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say before we do that, because we've talked about burnout and we've talked about feeling your feelings a lot in the first two questions. I don't have them yet, but by the time I put the show notes together for this episode, I will include some past episodes about those two topics. So if you want more on like recovering from burnout and turning your feelings back on, learning how to feel your feelings in a healthy way, then I'm going to put some episodes in the show notes. So you can go look there.
Excellent. Okay. And then also, if you want to get texts from us a couple of times a week, make sure you sign up. There's a link in the episode description. You can also text your name and then a space and then your email address to 703-783-3223.
Yep. Okay. So that number or the link to sign up for text is also in the show notes. So go there for all of your next steps. And so reminder, we won't be back on Tuesday because again, we're now doing every other Tuesday episodes. So we will next see you on Friday.
With an interview with a normal person.
With a new normal person interview. And just again, be reminded that soon enough, we're going to be opening up coaching, one-on-one coaching enrollment. So be thinking about that if that's been something you've been intending to do for a few months now. Okay?
All right. See you next week.
Bye.